Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakah, Kadash, Barakatham. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect of Israel. This is your brother, Izar, coming at you with another lesson from the GMS Miami camp. Today I want to talk about Moses was called. Moses was called. Okay. Now we're gonna go to the book of Exodus, chapter 3, starting at verse 2. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Verse 3. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, Yahweh called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he answered, Here I am. Okay. So the title of this lesson is Moses was called. Okay. Now, how was Moses called? When you go to chapter 3 of Exodus, verse 4, it says, And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, Yahweh called unto him out of the midst of the burning bush. And he said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. So Yahweh called Moses out of the midst of the burning bush. Okay. All right. And the burning bush caught Moses' attention. Okay. The burning bush caught Moses' attention. All right. And Moses was drawn into that burning bush like, wow, why is this bush burning and it's not being consumed? Because when you got a burning bush or you burn any type of vegetation, it's gonna turn black. The leaves gonna turn black. It's gonna turn to ashes, and it's just gonna wither away. All right. But Moses was drawn to this burning bush and trying to figure it out. Like, why is this bush burning and not consumed? Okay, but while Moses was in that zone trying to figure that out, Yahweh called him, man. Yahweh called him. Okay, Yahweh called him, and it says in verse 4, and when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, Yahweh called unto him out of the out of the out of the midst of the bush, and said, Moses, Moses. Okay, and he said, Here I am. So Yahweh called Moses out of the midst of the burning bush, and Moses said, Here I am. There he was. Okay. Now, when you go read down further in chapter 3, the Most High was giving Moses instruction. And also when you go into verse 4, like Exodus chapter 4, verse 1, all the way down to 10, Yahweh was giving Moses instruction. Okay, but when you get to verse 10, it says, when you get to chapter 4, verse 10 of Exodus, it says, And Moses said unto the Lord, O Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant. Okay, but I am slow of speech and of slow tongue. Okay, so Moses was brought up in an Egyptian household. Okay, even though he was Hebrew, the Moses, if you don't know the story of Moses, read it. And but for a long story short, Moses was brought up in an Egyptian household. Okay, I don't know, and he spoke Egyptian. Okay, he spoke the Egyptian tongue. All right, and he really didn't speak that much Hebrew. So when he received that instruction from the Most High, he was kind of concerned because he was slow of the Hebrew speech. Okay, he didn't really know that much. All right, but when you go down to let me go to Exodus 4 here. When you go to let me start at 10 again. And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of and of a slow tongue. Okay, now let's go to verse 11. And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb, or deaf, or seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now Moses was speaking to Yahweh, you know, Yahweh was speaking to Moses out of the midst of the burning bush. Okay. And it's when you step back and you see this, when you visualize the picture, you picture Moses talking to this burning bush, and the Most High gave him instruction on what to do. And Moses said, I am slow of speech. But Moses not realizing he's talking to a burning bush that the Most High is not allowed to be consumed. you know, and when I was reading, I was like, dang, Moses, I mean, you talking to Yahweh through a burning bush. He can give you the power to do it. But sometimes that happens. Even though Moses was looking at the burning bush, he still said to Yahweh, but I am slow of speech, slow tongue. Okay. Now, when you go down to verse 11, it says, And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth, or who maketh the dumb, or deaf, or seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? So the Most High was basically telling Moses he has all power. He's in control. Okay. And when you go on to verse 12, it says, Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say. Okay. So the Most High, that's what the Most High told Moses, man. He said, go, and he will be with thy mouth. Yeah. Okay. Now, when you go back to chapter 3, verse 4, we're going to read it again. Okay. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, Yahweh called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. He said, Here I am. Okay. All right. So Moses answered, he answered and said, Here I am. Okay. All right. Now, also, when you go further down in chapter 3, the Most High was giving Moses instruction. Okay. The Most High was giving Moses instruction. Okay. All right. And I got a precept for that. Let me go. Let me see here. Okay. All right. Let's go to the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 8, starting at 33. Hear instruction and be wise, and refuse it not. Okay. Now, when you go into chapters 3 and 4 of Exodus, Yahweh was giving Moses instruction. Okay. All right. And Moses received that instruction. Okay. And as a matter of fact, when you go to the chapter 4 of Exodus, starting at verse 18, it says, And Moses went and returned to Jethro his father-in-law, and said unto him, Let me go, I pray thee, and return unto my brethren which are in Egypt, and see whether they be alive. And Jethro said unto Moses, Go in peace. Okay. And the Lord said unto Moses, In Midian, go return into Egypt, for all the men are dead which sought thy life. So the Most High told Moses to go into Egypt, and he did it. Okay. He was called. Okay. As it says in Exodus chapter 3, verse 4, he was called. Okay. And when he was called, the Most High gave him instruction. Okay. Okay, and Proverbs 8:33 says, "Hear instruction and be wise, and refuse it not." So Moses received that instruction from the Lord and executed that instruction. Okay, all right. So that's what we have to do, Aki. When we are called to get into this truth, and when we, when the Most High calls us to get in, and we answer, and then after we answer, the Most High gives us instruction. We have to have faith on what He says that He wants us to do. Okay, because He will be with us. He was with Moses, and He will also be with us. Okay, all right, Akim. With Shalom and all praises and glory to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai by Hashem Makah Kadash Barakatham. Shalom.